In the past few years, some incredible things have happened. Germany's GDP has exceeded Japan's, and South Korea's per capita GDP has exceeded Japan's. But I mentioned many times in the video that Japan's economic support is strong, and its companies are more competitive in the international market than Germany and South Korea. Unlike Germany and South Korea, where large companies are facing a serious survival crisis and their business is shrinking rapidly, Japan's job market is highly prosperous, and even companies are competing for employees. Germany and South Korea are facing the same situation after Japan signed the Plaza Accord. With a rapid increase in nominal GDP and a substantial economic stagnation or even recession. These are important manifestations of the United States harvesting these countries. India, another target of the United States harvesting, is in the same situation. This year, all three countries have encountered serious economic downward pressure. Germany is the only country in the developed world with negative economic growth. South Korea's economic growth rate last year was about 1%, and it may be in a long-term slump in the future. India's economy slowed down suddenly in the second half of the year, and its growth was far below the expectations of international organizations. It can be said that after experiencing the lost 3 decades, the Japanese finally understood that GDP is just a statistical figure which only has reference significance in certain aspects, and it must not raise the exchange rate for the sake of dazzling figures, so that the manufacturing industry loses its export advantage. This policy has been adhered to in China for decades, and the Japanese have obviously learned it. So, the Koreans were still celebrating yesterday that their per capita GDP surpassed Japan, and they were proud of it. Today, in the midst of a serious economic crisis, they were hit by a second political crisis. The South Korean president declared martial law, which was then rejected by the National Assembly, and it seemed to be in a serious political crisis. In fact, after Yoon Suk-yeol was elected, South Korea's economy has been deteriorating. Its extremely pro-American policy has also been widely questioned. Like Germany and India, South Korea is very high profile in the Sino-US conflict and completely bets on the United States. Even after the THAAD incident, South Korean companies withdrew from China on a large scale, invested in Vietnam and India, and cooperated with Western media to sing the bad news about China. However, Samsung, the largest chaebol group in South Korea, was defeated by TSMC in the field of semiconductor manufacturing. Its display panel, storage, and other businesses are facing fierce competition from Chinese companies, and their market share is much lower than before. The automotive business of Hyundai, Kia, and other companies has been stunned by the rise of Chinese electric vehicles, and has been attacked from 2 directions by China and Japan, making it difficult to survive. And South Korea's other business, shipbuilding, which it relies on for survival, has been completely defeated by China, and the gap between the two sides will become larger and larger in the future. What's worse is that Korean culture has no market in China anymore. The new generation of young people in China generally hate Korea, and the influence of Chinese local culture is beyond the reach of Korean culture. Coupled with the hostility to China and Japan at the same time, South Korea, a country with a small land area, is facing an unprecedented crisis. It can be said that unless it exchanges a piece of territory with Canada and moves the whole country to the U.S. border to become the 51st state of the United States, otherwise, decline is inevitable. When China-South Korea relations were good, Chinese companies used high-end Korean components on a large scale, allowing Koreans to make enough money. But this led to Koreans being full of arrogance and hostility towards China, thinking that they were superior to the Chinese. When conflicts occurred between China and the United States, Koreans always stood on the side of the Americans and stabbed China. This led to China, from the government to the people, being determined to teach South Korea a lesson. Therefore, when Chinese companies purchase, they use domestic products if they can, and purchase from Japan and the United States if China does not have them, and try to avoid Korean products. South Korea's total economic output is similar to that of Guangdong Province or Jiangsu Province in China. It is simply unable to compete with China's full industrial chain, and failure is inevitable. South Korea, which once created the Han River miracle, is now facing the following situation: lack of domestic resources, small market size, high price level, weak technological competition, and deteriorating diplomatic situation. South Korea is the only country in East Asia that is an enemy of all countries. It is hostile to North Korea, Russia, Japan, and China at the same time. It is normal for such a country to fall into trouble. And its American daddy not only did not help South Korea, but placed a large number of orders to its mortal enemy Taiwan. The United States also asked South Korea to make trade concessions, otherwise it would wield a big stick to beat it. Trump is about to take office, and the Koreans have a huge protection fee bill to pay. At that time, the economy will be even more difficult.